New York Times journalist Andrew Ross Sorkin joins me. I don't get to welcome many friends onto the show, but I'm going to call Andrew Ross Sorkin a friend. Welcome to the show.
It's going to be massive, beyond anything that you can imagine.
Hold on. I'm not going to do this with you, Joe. Every morning you try to question the questions I'm asking.
Where do you think the economy's headed over the next year or two? What's your expectation?
If you're a journalist, to some degree, you have to be a professional skeptic. That's part of the job. Can we do an elbow bump?
We'll do an elbow bump. You can't live in this world today and not be curious. In fact, if ever there was a time to hear from more than the usual suspects, it's now. This is the Carlos Watson Show. Maybe we'll surprise you. Maybe you'll be mad at us sometimes, or inspired. Not only do I hope people will see more with the show, but I hope they'll do more and be more. People, the good stuff starts now. I don't get to welcome many friends onto the show, but I'm going to call Andrew Ross Sorkin a friend. Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm a proud friend, and I'm proud to be your friend, and I'm thrilled for you. So congratulations on your new program. And it's a thrill for me to be a part of it. So thank you.
I don't think I know as much of your backstory as maybe I think I do.
Okay.
Like, how did you get into journalism and why business journalism to begin with?
Well, as like everything in life, this was not the plan at all. I never wanted to be a journalist. I always found writing, and even to this day, find it hard. You know, I actually wanted to be on the business side of media.
Good morning. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. I'm Andrew Ross Sorkin. Giant announcing on its call with investors. It is moving up. Let's walk through, if you could, for investors so they understand. Could you see yourself fact-checking certain things that are coming either from the White House or other politicians in the United States?
Hey, Andrew, I saw you got into it the other day with your co-anchor on CNBC, Joe Kernan.
Joe, you missed it 100% on the way down, and you missed the 100,000 deaths. So we can have this debate back and forth, and you can try to question the questions I'm asking. But there are smart people, including your friend Stan Druckenmiller, who has argued that the market has been over. Hold on.
How real, how personal was that debate?
So it was real. And look, there's no pretending. We all say our piece, and in a way, we're like a family. We're like a family that, you know, it has disagreements at the table sometimes.
I understand 100,000 people died, Joe, and all you did was try to help your friend, the president. That's what you did.
I learn from Joe Kernan every single day. I learn from Becky, too. Let's not forget, Becky, I come with a perspective, and Becky comes with a perspective, and I think it's real. And I hope that is palpable to the audience. When I was 15 years old, I started a sports magazine. I was fascinated by sports, but it really wasn't sports that interested me. It was selling advertising to kids, if you can believe that, because I was distributing a magazine inside schools. I used to read a guy named Stuart Elliott, who was the advertising columnist for the New York Times, every day. It was religious for me. And when I was a senior in high school, I wrote him a letter saying I wanted to come work for him for 5 weeks for free. I had no intention of putting two words together, let alone a sentence at all. And I go and we have lunch together. He told me there was no way I could get an internship there. I was too young, wasn't going to work. And I somehow persuaded him to let me show up. I would get a visitor pass every morning, and I'd stand next to him. I didn't even have a desk. Greatest job of my life, by the way. Third week I'm there, a woman who has no idea how old I am. I'm wearing a suit with a tie on, trying to look like I'm supposed to be there. She overhears me talking about this thing called the internet. Now, this is 1995, and she assigns me a story. And I go back to Stuart, and I explain to him that I was assigned this story. And he looks at me and he says, you're in effing high school. You can't do this. And we went and we had pizza for lunch. I'll never forget. And somehow I convinced him, just let me try. And when I graduated from college and the New York Times offered me a role to go to London and cover mergers and acquisitions. And of course, I never left. So here we are.
Give me 30 seconds on Deal Book. I've loved it for years, but for those who don't know, if you can, tell me quickly how it started, but maybe more importantly, why are you still at it with such love almost 20 years later?
this was sort of my version of maybe being a media entrepreneur. In 2001, I was working at the New York Times, and I had this idea to start a newsletter, and this was almost like a blog before there were blogs. And it was about the world of Wall Street and mergers and finance. And the relationship with the reader is extraordinary. Many of the people that I've had the opportunity to interview were actually subscribers. We talk about these titans. They subscribed to the email many, many years ago, and they reply to it in the morning, which is a crazy thing. So it was almost like the earliest version of a really interactive relationship in the form of email. Coming up next year will be 20 years doing this thing.
Talk to me a little bit about Trump. I assume covering business as long as you have that you'd bumped into him before he ran for president.
Yeah.
How well did you know him, and what do you make of his presidency so far, whether you want to focus on the economic part or whether you want to think more broadly about his almost 4 years in office?
So I knew him, but obviously living in New York City and covering the business world, I'd been on the phone with him. He was one of those people who'd always take your call. He would take the call. And then on Squawk, for a while, we used to do a thing back when The Apprentice was on NBC called Trump Tuesdays. And he would call in to the show and talk about whatever was on his mind.
Basically, we're about getting rid of massive regulations, which are unnecessary, which are killing businesses and making it virtually impossible.
When you think about the economic record, you could give him a lot of credit. I don't know if you give him the credit. Frankly, I give Obama some of the credit. I clearly think that the way he's handled COVID has been horrific. By saying that testing was not going to be the priority, we just set ourselves so far back. And I think that history will not look well upon that part of it. As for the economy, I'm mixed because yes, the economy looked great pre-COVID, but if you spend a lot more money than you really have, you can make a lot of things look pretty good. At some point, it's going to catch up with us. It's just got to.
Where do you think the economy's headed over the next 6 months, over the next year or two? What's your expectation?
I think it's going to be choppy. My best case scenario is that it's choppy, that we get to a vaccine earlier than maybe is expected, or a therapeutic that's earlier than expected, and people have confidence to go out. The worst case scenario is much more dire than that. The worst case scenario is you really do have a second wave in the winter. All these restaurants that are doing okay, at least right now, serving people outside and whatnot, that they can't make it, that we don't put enough stimulus in the system for them to get to the other side, that it takes a lot longer to get a vaccine. I was taught many, many years ago that if you're a journalist, to some degree, you have to be a professional skeptic. That's part of the job.
The "you've been dreaming about this car since you were 8" policy from American Family Insurance.
Thoughtful people these days, whether it's AOC, Bernie Sanders, even President Clinton at times, Elizabeth Warren, have had some pretty meaningful critiques of our capitalist system. What do you say? What do you say when you see the long lines at food banks, people waiting to get food? You see people with multiple jobs still not making ends meet. If I made you czar, or if Biden or Trump named you to kind of oversee a kind of Uber economic post, what 2 or 3 big changes would you recommend to them?
Okay, so the first thing let me say is I hope that this whole pandemic that we're living through, if there's any lesson in it, it's the value of human beings doing labor, hard labor oftentimes, on the front lines, who don't get and historically have not gotten the credit or the wealth that they deserve. Full stop. I think we also have an obligation to rethink the tax code. The people who are working at Walmart, working in a hospital, that to me is their contribution to this country during what is the equivalent of a war. The contribution that I can make should come in the form of money. I should be writing a check to the government today because I wasn't on the front line. I got to sit at home.
One of the things that we're talking about on the show all the time is how people go about dreaming fearlessly, and not only dream fearlessly, but actually realize those dreams. What has surprised you about how to dream fearlessly and bring those dreams to life?
First is passion matters so much more than talent. So much more than talent. When I look at the people who've really shot the moon, it's the people who had the passion, the love for what they were doing. It wasn't necessarily that they were the most talented person in the room or got the best grades. 2, persistence. Persistence matters more than talent. I remember, at least in my career, it's always been the person who works the hardest, works the phones the most, reaches out to as many people as they possibly can. And so I think if you try and you can show people that you care, there's so much value to that. And that, at least for me, I don't know if I've thought big, but I think setting a target for yourself is important. I think being able to actualize or self-actualize what you want to happen, actually, there's value to that. And I know for many years I said to myself, I got to figure out a way to write a book. I got to figure out a way to make and then after that I thought, I got to figure out a way to make a TV show. And it might take years, billions. I started thinking about that in 2010. I don't think it was on the air till 2016. There's so many projects and things that may take a long, long time. Many, many years ago, I told myself that I should try. You probably make lists of people you'd love to interview. And I remember thinking, I'd love to interview the Pope. Why not go for gold? Why not go for the top? It probably I interviewed him last fall. Sometimes I'll set goals that I'll never reach, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth trying.
With Black Lives Matter and the conversation that happened, on one hand, some people said, thank God we're having this conversation. Maybe we'll get to a better place. What are you hearing, especially among the titans of industry? Did anything meaningful happen here, and will anything happen?
So I don't know if this is going to be satisfying or totally unsatisfying. I think we're on a journey. And I think that hopefully what we're going to see over time is that you're going to see the next generation, quote unquote, empower and empowered. I think that's happening. I think it's happening in hiring. I think you're hearing about, NBC Universal, parent company CNBC, put out a 50% diversity target for the company. So I think you're going to see a lot of real effort go into this. But again, that's what I said. I feel like it's a journey, and it's going to take longer than we want it to. It is. It really is. And the more CEOs that I talk to at the tops of their companies, this has become one of the singular issues that they're focused on, 100%.
And so what happens when you talk about it on the air? Is there fatigue and people don't want to talk about it?
When George Floyd was murdered, and that's what it is, it's all we can call it, clearly we had lots of CEOs come on who wanted to talk about it. And maybe there was fatigue about the topic, but it gets embedded in virtually all the conversations. I think it's a real issue, and I don't think it's going away.
Who are the next handful of big names that you think are going to break through and this is a COO or this is a so-and-so, and if I were going to keep my eye on 2 or 3 people, here would be the folks I'd keep my eye on?
Okay, I'm going to give you names that you may or may not know. I don't know. I'll give you Tasunda Duckett. You know Tasunda?
Love her, big fan of hers.
How do I make sure that I do my part so that more Rosie and Otis Browns can see the art of possibility when it comes to financial health?
Say more. Why is she on your list?
Tasunda Duckett runs the consumer business at JP Morgan. And I saw her speak at something and she blew me away. She had people crying in the room. And I thought to myself, whoever she is, something big is going to happen. Sarah Fryer. I don't know if you know Sarah.
Of course.
Sarah was the CFO of Square. She's on the board of Walmart. She's now running a company called Nextdoor, which is sort of a more localized version of Facebook. Very impressive, just beyond impressive. Yeah, but the other thing is, we're talking about American companies. Ant Financial's a Chinese payment company. It's going to be massive, massive, beyond anything that you could imagine.
I'm hosting an event called Engage with Smartsheet, and we want to tell the attendees about change. What other advice do you have for people who want to be a change agent, who don't just want to wait and hope and see if it happens? Like, what else would you say to them about how to actually be that effective change agent?
I think a lot of us can get into what I call like a responsive mode. You know, two things happen. You have a calendar of things that are supposed to happen, that you want to happen, and then on the other side, you get emails, you get an inbox. A lot of people spend their day trying to get to zero on the inbox, trying to just respond to the incoming. I really think you got to look at the calendar, but I do think you have to try to prioritize things because the whole world's coming so fast, and with social media and all the crazy things that people are up to, you can get lost in it. So I would say snap out of it, focus on the stuff that actually matters, and try to sort through the rest of it.
What would your wife tell us about you that most people don't know? What would she say? Here's what you should know about Andrew that would surprise most people who think they know him.
I know what it is. She'd say I'm a carbaholic, which is true. And then I get all upset with myself because I eat too many carbs, and I've been eating too many carbs during COVID. That's what she'd tell you.
And how did you guys meet? Give us the love story. How did you guys come together?
So I met her when I was 11 years old. She was 7 years old. I never saw her again till I was 26 years old, and she must have been 21 years old. We had a family friend in common. That's when I met her when I was 11. And I happened to be at the family friend's house on July 4th. Obviously, you know, fast forward, what was it, 10 plus, over a decade later. And she walked in, and no one had ever thought to set us up or anything. And we hit it off. She apparently went inside to the kitchen that afternoon and told our family friends, the mother, these are my parents' very good friends, I got it in the bag, meaning me. So I don't know.
Why does it work?
I've never talked about this on TV like this. When I met her, I felt like I knew her my whole life. I was actually scared of the feeling. I had had other girlfriends and things. I had never met somebody that I felt was like I'd known forever, like they were just like they were part of my life. It was so crazy. It was the weirdest feeling. There's a yin and yang thing. You know, I procrastinate. She's decisive. You know, she definitely takes me down one peg. She's much smarter than I am about life in many, many ways. There's never been a day in my life where I've been, you know, the couples who say like, I got to get away from them for a day or this or that. Never.
That's crazy beautiful. Now, what did the kids do to the mix? Because you have 3 kids, right?
They make it crazier. I got 2 boys who are twin boys who are 9 years old. They don't look alike. And then I have a daughter who's 3 years old. And my daughter basically is my wife.
Interesting. And now, are you a different person, do you think? Have the kids changed you think, as a person in any meaningful way, or more or less Andrew is Andrew?
I think that having kids changes your perspective about what's important. I do.
So are you game to go to the rapid fire?
I'm ready.
Most impressive CEO you've ever met?
Well, I got to know him better after being a CEO. He had left. But I'd say the smartest person that I've ever met is Bill Gates. I think every time I have an opportunity to talk to Bill Gates, I walk away more impressed than the last time.
Ounce per ounce, who's the best investor, which is different than the best CEO? Who's the best investor or the best 2 or 3 investors you've ever come across?
You know who's done very, very well is Dan Loeb. Dan Loeb has done a tremendous job over the last 20 years. If you just go look at the returns, those are real returns.
What's the best piece of investment advice you've ever gotten?
And I hate to say it, when there's blood in the water, when it looks like everything's terrible, you gotta buy. You gotta buy. Even though it feels terrible, you don't want to do it. And when everything seems great, you gotta sell.
Sports. You have a favorite athlete of all time?
I watched The Last Dance like the rest of the world, and it was the greatest. You know, it was like reliving my childhood. I loved every second of it. I loved Jordan. I loved Pippen. Now I'm going to embarrass myself. Yes, I used to save money and beg my parents to get Jordans. I, at one point, got myself a knee brace, the black and red knee brace where he flipped it, and I used to wear that. I didn't even have bad knees, but I was a big Agassi fan. I played tennis, and I loved Agassi, and I could never my parents would never allow me to get the spandex. You remember the pink spandex under the shorts? I wanted it, though. So,
hey, Andrew Ross Sorkin, promise me this won't be the last time.
We'll do it again. Can we do it in person?
In person would be good.
Can we do an elbow bump?
We'll do an elbow bump. Got you.
Okay.
I got you. Gracias and thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I love being with Andrew Ross Sorkin. He's a good buddy. He's been a buddy for a while. Always interesting. Love some of his financial recommendations. I didn't know about the Chinese company and financial, so I definitely was writing that down, and we'll be following them. And who knew that Andrew had such good ideas on policy, or that he loved it? Like, he rattled off 4 or 5 good ideas right away. Last but not least, didn't know about his love affair with his wife. I'd really like that. I have a feeling that he's a much better person than even he knows as a result of Pilar. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, please subscribe, and better yet, tell a friend. More good stuff ahead. See you soon. Hey, tune into the Carlos Watson Show. It's like no other. You're going to enjoy it every weekday on YouTube.